Hello, and thanks very much for being with me. What I want to do is take a moment to explain the kind of confusing budgetary situation that's taking place in Washington right now. I know you're hearing a lot about it. As chairman of the Budget Committee, let me try to explain to you uh, what we are trying to do and how it's going. For a start, you're ready to get confused because here it goes. For a start, we got a so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill. And that's Democrats and Republicans working together on what we would call traditional infrastructure. That's roads and bridges, it's broadband, it's water, and other types of programs like that. I think the programs themselves, what they are trying to fund, is good, and it amounts to some $570 billion. But its weakness is how it funds those programs. I have some questions about that. Anyhow, that is the bipartisan infrastructure bill, $570 billion for roads, bridges, etc. What I am working on as chairman of the Budget Committee is what is called reconciliation. And you say, what is reconciliation? Well, bottom line is reconciliation is an approach under Senate rules that we can use, Democrats can use, with 50 votes plus the vice president to pass significant legislation. And the reason we have to go that route is my Republican colleagues are not interested in addressing the issues facing working families. We will not get one Republican out of 50 to support what we're doing. So we have to go the route of reconciliation. Problem there is you don't have the freedom to do everything that you want. In reconciliation, you're kind of hidebound by various types of rules called Byrd rules, after Senator Byrd. All right. Bottom line here is, what are we trying to accomplish in the bill? I think we can look at it in three ways. This is a $3.5 trillion proposal, which added to the $600 billion, almost $600 billion bipartisan bill, brings you up to about $4.1 trillion, which is somewhere in the vicinity of what President Biden wanted. It is much less than what I have fought for. I wanted $6 trillion, which I think is the appropriate number, but hey, I got one vote, and there are 49 other Democrats, and many of them did not agree with that number. So we are where we are. Now, what is in this $3.5 trillion budget? Well, for a start, look at it in three different ways. Number one, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, and at a time when billionaires like Jeff Bezos and others and large profitable corporations are not paying a nickel in a given year in federal taxes, what this bill does say to the wealthiest people in our country and the largest corporations, you're going to have to start paying your fair share of taxes. And we raise trillions of dollars in revenue by doing that. Number two, it begins to address the long neglected needs of working families. I don't have to tell anybody out there. Real wages for American workers today is not any better than it was, maybe lower than it was 48 years ago. Half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Over 90 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. You got a massive housing crisis, etc. So what this bill says is that we are finally, as a government, going to address the needs of working families and not just worry about the 1% and the wealthiest people in this country and their lobbyists. That's pretty radical around here. So what is in the bill? What are we doing? Well, let's start off by looking at the youngest people in America, our children. We as a nation, shamefully, have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Well, you know what? We're going to address it. We're going to address that in a number of ways. Number one, we're going to pass a child tax credit. That means if you're a working class family, loosely defined, and you have a child, for every child under 18, you will get $300 a month from the federal government to help you raise that child. And we think that that will, which is basically what goes on around other industrialized countries around the world. So it's not a radical idea, not a new idea, but it will reduce childhood poverty by 50%. What do you think about that? Reduce childhood poverty just by doing that. And in addition, for children, what we're going to do, and every parent out there knows this, we have a totally dysfunctional childcare system. It is outrageously expensive. Workers in childcare get paid starvation wages. We don't have enough locations. Many people in America literally cannot find a slot for their child. So we're going to deal with childcare in a very profound way and make hundreds of billions of dollars investment to lower the cost of childcare for working families. The goal is no family would pay more than 7% of their income, which is far less than they're paying right now. And we're going to make sure that childcare workers receive living wages and see it as a career, not just as a low-wage job. What we're also going to do is address the many crises that we have in healthcare. All of you know, and I've ranted and raved about this one for years, we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Pharmaceutical industry is enormously powerful. We are going to have, for the first time, Medicare negotiating prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry, and we think we can raise as much as $500 billion in doing that and lower prescription drug costs throughout the country. What we're also going to do is expand Medicare to finally cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. It is simply crazy that for many, many decades now, Medicare was passed in 1965, and somehow at that point they didn't think that dental care or hearing or vision was a healthcare issue. Well, obviously it is, and we're going to put that in there so that senior citizens in this country will be able to go to a dentist, to get the hearing aids they need, get the eyeglasses that they need. We are also going to make sure that we have enough doctors and nurses and dentists in this country. One of the crazy things in our dysfunctional healthcare system is not only do we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, but despite that, we don't have enough doctors in many parts of this country. We don't have enough mental health providers in this country, doctors who are working on women's health, primary care physicians, doctors in rural areas, doctors in underserved urban areas. So we have a program in here which will train more and more doctors and nurses and dentists and get them into underserved areas. We are also, in terms of Medicare, fighting to lower the eligibility age. Right now it is 65, hasn't changed. We want to lower that to 60 years of age so more and more people can enjoy the benefits of Medicare. The United States is the only major country on earth, if you can believe it, that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. So that means that we have workers going to work and cannot take off of work because they have no sick time. We have women who are giving birth today who are going back to work a week from now because they don't have sufficient paid time off. We are the only major country on earth, and many of the developing countries also have paid family and medical leave. We are almost the only country in the world doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. That will change. And I think it will probably, where we're at now, we're working on these things, start off with 8 weeks and then move to 12 weeks. But the goal will be is that when you're sick, you can stay home. If your kid is sick, you can stay home with your kid. If your mom or dad is seriously ill, you can nurse them and stay with them. And this is a major step forward in creating a more civilized society. We are also dealing with the crisis in affordable housing. I don't have to tell anybody that housing costs are soaring all over this country. Literally 2 blocks away from where I am right now in the nation's capital, there is a compound of homeless people living in tents. Almost 600,000 people in this country are homeless. Some 18 million households are spending 50% of their limited incomes on housing, gentrification, driving up rents all over America. We are going to make the largest single investment in the history of our country in building low-income and affordable housing. And by the way, when we do that, it's going to create a whole lot of great paying jobs. So in terms of education, it is no great secret that a whole lot of folks out there, many millions, People cannot either afford to go to college or are leaving school deeply in debt. As many of you know, my own view is that we should make public colleges and universities tuition free. That is not happening in this bill. But what is happening is 2 years of community college would be tuition free. And that's a step forward. It doesn't go as far as it should, but it is a step forward. A lot of money going into historically black colleges and universities and other universities and colleges where there are a lot of minority students. So those are what we are trying to do. And that's just a brief outline of what we're trying to do to protect working families, to create the millions of good paying jobs we need, and to address many long neglected problems. The third area that we are addressing in an unprecedented way is climate. I don't have to tell anybody who is watching this that climate change is in fact an existential threat to our country and to the planet. And what you're seeing in the West Coast right now, the horrors of what you're seeing, I was just talking to a colleague of mine from Oregon, 116 degrees in, I think, Portland, Oregon. Insane temperatures. Massive floods in Detroit, flooding in New York City. It's going on all over the world. And if we do not, in an extremely bold and aggressive way, address climate, then the planet we're going to be leaving our children and future generations will be increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable. Because what's going on there on the West Coast, this is not just a one-shot event. It will only get worse. So we are pouring a huge amount of money into moving our economy, our transportation system, agriculture, away from fossil fuels into energy efficiency and sustainable energy. There's a whole lot of programs that we have. I just don't have the time to go through all of them right now. But there is going to be, by far, the largest investment in addressing climate that this country has ever seen. And among many other programs, and I'm excited about this, we're going to put tens of billions of dollars into a civilian climate corps. And essentially what that means is we're going to have hundreds of thousands of young people get actively involved in the fight to transform our energy system. And they will be paid well. And if I have anything to say about it, there will be educational stipends also as a benefit, which will enable them either to be able to afford college or pay off the student debt. So I'm very excited about the concept of the Civilian Climate Corps, which is based on the Rooseveltian CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps of the 1930s. So, bottom line here is we are looking at the most consequential piece of legislation to impact the lives of working people that we have seen, I believe, since FDR in the 1930s. And it will, among many other things, create millions and millions of good paying and meaningful jobs which take on climate change and improve lives for working families. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to update you on what's going on here and to keep you, as the days and weeks go forward, to keep you informed. This is a work in progress. A lot of committees working on it, a whole lot of folks are working on it. But I do applaud the president and my colleagues here for finally taking a hard look at the crises facing the American people, the working people of this country, and beginning to address it. Now, I know some people will say, well, it doesn't go far enough. Well, between you and me, I agree with you. But anyone who denies that this is a major, major, major step forward, I think is missing the boat. So thank you all for watching. Look forward to chatting with you soon.